Hello and welcome once again to another edition of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. I am your host, Pete Pardo, publisher of SOT. You can visit us on the web, as always, at www.seaoftranquility.org. Today is Sunday, March the 15th. Can you believe it? And we are here at the Wherehouse in downtown Newburgh on Liberty Street with Mr. Dan Brown, owner of this wonderful establishment.
Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Well, I think it's my restaurant. Why shouldn't I be here?
Yeah,
right?
thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're hosting it here.
Yes,
right?
thanks for having me. For those of you who have not been to the Wherehouse, if you haven't, shame on you. This is just a wonderful place that you'll hear great music, great food, great beer. He's always got at least, 10, 15 rotating taps of 25 taps of beer from all over creation, as well as a burger menu that's almost to the point of monolithic now at, 3 pages? And about
98 themed burgers.
98 themed burgers, barbecue, vegetarian food, great sandwiches, wings, I mean, you name it. But, more importantly, Dan and I have known each other now for a couple of years. I frequent this establishment fairly often, and Dan and I have a mutual love for not only local music, but legendary music from the past. And today we're going to do a special show just looking at what we call Forgotten Favorites on the What's Hot show, which is basically, music from the past that maybe was very rare, obscure, or maybe stuff that was just really, really good but just didn't really make the mainstream. Stuff that's near and dear to my heart. Dan and I both share a love for some of this classic music. But more importantly, let's talk a little bit about the Wherehouse. So you've got a lot of musical things that are going to be happening over the next couple of months.
We have music quite often, generally every weekend, and there's certain monthly acts that come in. Talking Machine is the first Thursday of the month, an acoustic duo, and the third Thursday of the month is an incredible jazz trio called the Thunderhead Organ Trio with Neil Alexander, who's a local jazz pianist, guitarist, you name it, theremin player, anything cosmic. Matter Neil used to play with The Machine, which was a certified Pink Floyd tribute band for over a decade. So you can understand the quality of his musicianship that comes in here.
I think all you Hudson Valley music lovers are pretty well familiar with The Machine. They've been playing around here for decades.
Oh, God, yeah. They're like 20 years old,
yes,
at least. As far as musically, we always try to feature new and innovative bands, bands from all over the world, all over the country. We put the emphasis on original music. If someone has to throw covers in, it's great. We'd like them to play their original music, a place where they can strut their stuff. What we're doing in connection with that is this summer we're doing something called the Summer of Independence, I-N-D-I-E, Pendence, which we will feature about 15 shows with anywhere from 3 bands on Saturday evening to 2 bands on a Sunday matinee, which is more of an acoustic played-down version. And we kick that off on June 27th with 4 bands that are all local. A lot of it is prog and psychedelic type rock, a little bit more melodic, and just some great stuff. We had a little bit of mini show last night with 3 bands. Sun Voyager, who comes out of the local area, a band called It's Not Night, It's Space out of New Paltz, which I hear have just recently signed, and they are right out there. And they also had the honor of having a small band trio coming from Chicago. They picked up the gig as a last-minute thing called Two Houses. And it was a fun night, a little loud, gets my tinnitus going again, but that's okay. That's what music's all about.
Yes.
And, of course, in summer, wintertime, or fall, we do our 5th annual Psychedelic Zombie Barbecue, which is held outside the restaurant on the field. We feature upwards to about 10 bands and an after show in the restaurant, zombie walk, international beer garden, barbecue pit, vendors. It's a fun day.
It is. Yeah, I've been to the last 2. It's a lot of fun. So, we have a lot of bands and musicians, not only locally and nationally, that follow our website and our YouTube show. So if any bands were interested in possibly getting in touch with you to play at one of your events or at the restaurant itself, how would they go about that?
The best way to get in contact with me is to email me at the Wherehouse email, which is Wherehouse, small case, W-H-E-R-E, house, H-O-U-S-E, .119@gmail.com. Please be patient if you send emails. Sometimes it takes a fair amount of time to get back to you. Since I am the chief executive bottle washer, unplugger of toilets, and the guy that orders everything, and book the bands and design posters, you name it, I get behind. But I also do book about 3 to 4 months ahead of schedule, so it can take a little pressure off of me. But please send it to us. If you don't hear back from me, unless you send you a courtesy email, it means that the dates are coming through. I'm not necessarily ignoring you. It may not be, it may be filled already. I do get a lot of requests coming through next month. And unless there is a special situation or an acoustic band that can squeeze in, generally it's about 3 or 4 months out. Okay. But they can contact me on that email.
Sounds good. So, again, the Warehouse, if you haven't been here, you need to get down here on Liberty Street in Newburgh. It's an area of Newburgh that's got a lot of history, some of the good, some of the bad, but I think Dan has really done his share to help make this a much, much better neighborhood. And I come down here all the time, and it's
safe. I've been here 6 years. I'm still standing. So it is. It's turning around down here. We've got businesses, we've got art galleries, we've got happenings going on all the time. There's something called Last Saturday of the Month, in which there are art exhibits, different events going on for local businesses, including myself. I will have music sometimes on the last Saturday of the month. And during the frigid months of January, it was packed. So we're hoping that in the spring and summer, it's going to start rocking the house here. Which is great.
Well, my point to all of you, especially you locals, there's a lot more to Newburgh than just the waterfront. So as good as the waterfront is, don't be afraid to come venture up a couple blocks and hit this wonderful establishment. So great. So let's get down to some music, why don't we? So
you want to start? I want to start. What do you want to do?
We'll go back and forth.
Okay.
I've got CDs. Dan got some LPs. Again, remember these are mostly bands and albums. In many cases, they're fairly old. Some not as old as others, but they're all. It's all some really good stuff.
Okay.
So
may I add something? It's just so everybody gets on the same page with us. The reason why I'm into music, Peter's into music, obviously. This little moniker behind me says the Vinyl Wrestling Place. I did have a record store on Liberty Street, a few doors down from the restaurant, for about a year. It just became a little bit too much to handle and run the restaurant as well, and book bands and unplug the toilets and whatever else I do. And I decided to close it down, but that is our old sign back there that hangs there with leftover vinyl that we use as great wall coverings. You can cover holes with it. All you have to do is polish it with Windex. Works miracles. But that's why I'm that much into vinyl and music that I actually had a record store, and I still collect and whatever.
And the restaurant is actually almost like a vinyl museum here. So this is the back dining room area, which also serves as the music room at times, correct?
On rare occasions,
right.
Generally a dining room. The front we serve music, we show music in the front. On occasion we'll have punk shows here that we will clear out the tables and do in the back. They have their own little thing back here, but for the most part, this is considered the Yaffa room that we're working on right now, and this is a dining room or catering, or just if you don't want to listen to bands, you come back here, and you really can't hear the music because the building is weirdly shaped.
Yes, it is. It is. But as you can see, lots of vinyl on the wall. The next room has actually the LP jackets, some really, really rare and cool stuff on the wall. And then in the front, you've got more vinyl on the ceiling. There's old concert posters all over the place.
Anything pop culture, anything from an O.J. Juicer and Mr. T. Chia Pet to to vinyl on the ceiling.
It's all about the memorabilia, folks. I mean, it's rock and roll, food, and beer. What more do you need?
It's baby boomer heaven here.
Yeah. So anyway, with that in mind, mid-'70s heavy rockers, Bloodrock from Texas. These guys were together for a decade or so, put out a lot of really, really solid albums. This is their self-titled debut. If you love Hammond organ and crunchy guitar, great vocals, lots of boogie and all that kind of stuff,
One of their classic songs, DOA.
DOA from their second album, which was on a hit on the radio.
Yeah, which was about a guy dying in an ambulance. So it was like real upbeat type of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting thing about Bloodrock is that one of the members in it, the founder, is a fellow by the name of John Nitzinger.
Yes.
And actually, John Nitzinger put out 2 albums on Capitol as his band.
The first is very good.
Yeah.
The first is with the black cover.
Yep, the black cover.
Yeah. Good guitar player.
And they came and went, and they had their moment in the sun.
Yep. And, toured with a lot of major acts. I mean, they opened for everybody out there at the time. If you love like classic Deep Purple, Uriah Heep with a little Grand Funk thrown in for good measure, can't go wrong with Bloodrock.
It's just that heavy. It's just that heavy sound.
Yeah. So, Bloodrock's debut. Check it out.
What do I got? Let's see. Let's start. We have vinyl today. So, let's start small and simple here. We've got this is a vinyl out of 1967 that's called Cake. Try to get that light out there.
Yeah.
There we go. That's better. Cake. Cake was a trio of women singers. who used to be like a semi-house band at a club in New York City called the Scene Club, owned by Steve Paul, who also happened to be Johnny Winter's manager at one point. The Scene was a great after-hours place when clubs closed. Hendrix was known to have gone there all the time. Anybody who was anybody went to the Scene. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty certain there was a bootleg Hendrix album that came out called, they used to put it out as High, Live, and Dirty, Sky High, whatever. It was an audience recording with Hendrix sitting in with a band, and Jim Morrison gets up drunk and starts singing.
Oh, I've heard that, yeah.
I'm not sure if it was the Scene Club, but that was one of the things. However, though, this trio here, Jeanette Jacobs and two other ladies, they eventually were signed. After signed, they went to California, and they became somewhat of kind of like a psychedelic Ronettes or a girl trio. And once again, like befell the fate of many of the musicians back then as it is today, released the first album. It got a great deal of airplay because it was more of a freeform radio at that point. But by the second album, it was just so much stuff coming out that things just kind of the record companies were dropping people as quickly as they signed them, or didn't promote them. Not that it's changed any much more today. Yeah. Probably worse. Yeah. But that's what happened, and they went their way. This album, as far as in the world of vinyl, it's probably about a $50 record if you find it. Many of these things that Peter and I are talking about today, fortunately, with the world of CDs, which is not really up in sales right now, but there's a lot of small, obscure companies that are putting out vinyl that's not being put on major labels, but they are reissuing a lot of these classic nuggets in CD format, and on rare occasion you can find it as a downloadable, on iTunes. But that's the way to get a hold of these music, unless you happen to stumble upon a box in a garage somewhere.
And those are out there.
Yeah, they're out there. That's how I found some real gems. By accident, just tripping over myself, And looking at some of this is interesting, and I didn't even realize what I had until I put it on. Your turn.
My turn. Okay. Leaf Hound, Growers of Mushroom. I mean, this is like a semi-legendary British hard rock release. It's the only, well, up until recently, they've reformed in recent years, but this was their only album released back in the day. The lead singer is Mr. Peter French, who later went on to Cactus, as well as Tom Brewster. Again, this is like one of those albums and one of those bands
that...
like
67, 66?
Actually, early. I think it was 1970, actually. 70, yeah. So right around that time. A lot of the current hard rock and stoner rock and metal bands, cite Leaf Hound as an influence. Basically, if you love classic Zeppelin or Humble Pie or Cactus or Black Sabbath, that sort of thing, just great bluesy, crunchy.
Stephen Marion.
Yes, exactly. And great, really, really good, powerful melodic vocals. Just a really raunchy, great early British hard rock record. So, Leaf Hound, Growers of Mushroom. This CD released on the Repertoire label, by the way, who always did a really, really great job. Nice booklets.
Love the books.
Yeah,
books are entertaining.
It's all about
great toilet reading.
Yes, absolutely. So, you're up.
I'm up. Let's see, what's next here? Ooh, yeah. Let's go with Mad River. Mad River, which was originally out of Ohio, as a power quintet. They eventually, once again, moved to California. They all moved to California because that's where the scene was. They turned around. And with songs such as Amphetamine Gazelle, Wind Chimes, and The War Goes On, another anti-war anthem that goes for 12 minutes and 30 seconds. But once again, it had its moment in the sun, signed, possibly made a second album. I believe they were dropped once again, like everybody else. It's a nugget from the past. You're not going to hear this on, probably not going to find this on Pandora, for God's sakes. Yeah, and this is the area you've got your typical, your really bad hairdos. You've got the guy with the big cap. He looks like Andy Cap, the cartoon character. Long hair, beards, whatever, the usual thing. Oh, just like the guy who's holding the record, that guy. Yeah. But it's heavy. It's a little bit hard to digest unless you're into that psychedelic sound. You wouldn't put this on at a party with friends unless they're all stoners, because you're going to put it on. Trust me, if you want to get rid of your guests, put it on, because they will say, I'm going to go home and listen to Billy Ray Cyrus, or whatever it is. But it's definitely a worthwhile look. Mad River, I believe, is available on CD. I haven't really researched it that much, but that's Mad River, 1968.
1968. All right, we're going to fast forward just a couple of years. I know Dan knows very well who this band is.
Oh,
From
yeah.
New York, Dust, self-titled and Heart Attack. These are the CD reissues. These are kind of old, but both these albums have recently been remastered and reissued on a 2-for-1.
It was on the Pharmasutra label.
Yes, yes.
Which was a division of Buddha, which was a division of whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was subsidiaries.
So, you got Richie Wise on guitars, a guy named Kenny Aronson on bass, who played with a lot of people in the late 70s and early 80s, and a guy by the name of Mark Bell on drums.
Who is Marky Ramone.
Marky Ramone.
When Mark Bell made the first album, I believe he was only like 16 years old. Yeah. And once again, before the reissues on CDs, was considered a fairly rare album to find. These, in the days of vinyl, and even the early days of CD, a lot of these records that went out of print were not reissued. That's actually a Frank Frazetta painting.
Frazetta, exactly.
Who's famous for doing Conan paintings.
Molly Hatchet albums.
Yes, the quintessential American illustrator artist.
Yeah.
But these albums here were very desirable. You find them every so often, and they really went around those first 20 years of CDs.
Yeah.
And I don't know, are those imports or are those domestic?
I believe these are imports.
Okay,
Yeah.
usually it's imports.
Yeah.
They do the nice digipack.
And a great band. You're again, I hate to say typical, but like your early 70s power trio, heavy bluesy rock, actually quite heavy for the time. And then they put out these two albums and then just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I think they were more of a region.
Yeah.
I don't think that really went national, which explains also why it disappeared. A lot of bands in those days, before iTunes, before listening to YouTube, or wherever you're listening to, or even satellite radio, the great thing about music, if you traveled around, you went to a record store, is that you would find what we call regional bands. And these were bands that had distribution, but maybe within a 2 or 3 state area. And the only way you find this record, you have to travel through, or if you were in the military, and you met guys from all over guys and gals from all over the United States, you'd get together, and then all of a sudden, somebody's getting rid of the record collection, and you'd buy it. And that's how I would find a lot of stuff that was from different areas. So, for example, Nitzinger. Nitzinger I found from a guy in Texas, who lived in Texas. So, same thing with Dust. There was probably somebody in Ohio going, Dust, what's that?
And again, radio was different back then, FM radio, so you had a lot of these local, I'll use WNEW, for instance, out of New York City. I mean, they had some DJs on there who were really interested in discovering new underground bands, and they would actually have the flexibility to go on the air and play some of this music.
Free-form radio.
Yeah.
Or, as you saw the film, called pirate radio. But back then it was legit. DJs went in, and each DJ had his own significant style. And the DJ would actually go in and lay out his playlist. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't, there was a big payola scandal in the 50s where record companies were greasing the palms of DJs. Of course, that was the downfall of Alan Freed. But DJs were given not only free reign of what to do, but they also, carved out a particular niche for themselves as a DJ, a personality. Right now, it's just programmed in and so forth. A perfect example, Vince Scelza, who has been around radio since probably 1700 at this point, but he used to be on NEW, I believe, a number of the other rock stations, and he had a show called Idiot's Delight at night. That ran actually up through the device of radio, probably in the early 2000s. He still exists. He's on Fordham Radio, and he still has this kind of Idiot's Delight, but he would come in and play the most obscure stuff. I mean, this is a guy that when a DJ, when you go a dance and DJ, they segue into stuff. These guys would sit in the studio, and I remember one time he played Led Zeppelin's song Rain, and then turned around and segues into Frank Sinatra, doing April in Paris or something. But you know something? It worked. Because when you were listening to music, you were into the music, and you have to realize that it's not old fart music, young guy music, etc. Music is an international language, and everybody can understand it.
Absolutely. It's often forgotten these days.
Let's do that one. I was going to bring that today.
Yeah? Okay.
Speaking of power trios.
Yeah, so this is a band that I found out recently that Dan and I both have a really strong love for. And, when you talk about or you read about the innovators of, or the creators of heavy metal, proto metal, of those you always hear like Zeppelin and Sabbath and Deep Purple, among maybe a couple other bands. But there's one band from Wales who just never seems to get their due, and this band called Budgie.
They're still
pounding
it out.
They're still at it. Can you remember the first time you heard Zeppelin's first album? Or the first time you heard Black Sabbath's first album? The first time you heard In Rock by Deep Purple? Pretty powerful stuff, right? Well, let me tell you something. This thing hits like a hammer. And, again, their first, 5 albums are just like absolute classics of that early metal sound.
The first album was, of course, Budgie, self-explanatory. Yeah. Another album was called Never Turn Your Back on a Friend. Yep. The other one was In for the Kill. Then it wasn't until an album came out called Bandolier, which actually got U.S. distribution. Yep. And you have to understand that the lead singer is a bass player, I believe, it's the bass Burke Shelley, who also is very much along the lines like Geddy Lee. Yeah. And he actually looks a little bit like Geddy Lee. But the other thing, this band were just power bass-driven rock. Some great catchy tunes and long songs. But some of their song titles are exemplar. Like something like hotter than a dock worker's armpit,
or Nude Disintegrating Parachute Woman. Yeah, which is an incredible song.
Homicidal, Suicidal.
Yes.
And these would come out, and the guy had a very kind of a high voice. Yeah. But they still are. They're still out there. They've not been on a major label for years, but they have at least 14 albums out. But they're worth a check. They're difficult to find. They're on CD now. Yes. And even those first 4 that were European, they were fetching heavy prices even back in the 70s, back when imports were coming in. And after that, they vanished. You find Budgie on vinyl, original pressings, which I was going to bring an original pressing of that from Europe. And you find that on there, and people are just like, fighting with rusty knives over this thing. But you can, I believe also their catalog is available for download on iTunes or some of like Amazon.com. You can pretty much, and there's a couple of great, if you want to be a completist, they have a couple of great compilation, like double disc sets, which a lot of the bands from the 60s that you want to get a good dose of, but one CD is not enough. Budgie, you can do it with 10 Years After, and also the band The Groundhogs. They have a great 2 CD set out. They're like British rock blues. But Budgie is definitely one to check into if you like that bass power-driven rock trio.
Yeah, riffs to die for. This is heavy stuff. I would say some of their material is as heavy as what Sabbath was doing at the time. It's just a little different. Some of the, like Dan mentioned, some of the tunes are a little on the longish side. They had a real knack for, they'd hit you with these sledgehammer heavy guitar riffs, and then they'd throw in this little acoustic folky interlude and a little jazzy guitar solo, and then the distorted riffs would come flying back. So, stylistically, at times they're a little all over the place, but it's just really, really strong.
It kind of comes off like Uriah Heep unplugged. It just has that
without the organ, yeah.
Without the organ, and just pull it back to the basics and let it go. And it's a worthwhile listen to.
And a couple of their albums were the cover art was done by Roger Dean, famous for Uriah Heep albums, Yes albums. Everybody knows who Roger Dean is.
Lyra Britannia and Wave the Rules.
Yes, another good album.
That's anyway,
Budgie, remember that. Go out and investigate.
Just like the bird. As a matter of fact, the bird appears on the cover.
Yes.
So if you're really is this a Budgie album? Just look for the parrot head, or not the what's his name, the Margaritaville guy, not that parrot head. But we're looking at you see I'm into that, right? But like there's a parrot head, like a Budgie, aka a Budgie. Yeah. So there's going to be a bird somewhere along the line.
All right, what do I
got next here? Well, let's see. We're gonna segue down the world of illegal bootlegs. Mysteries unfounded. Well, in 1969 or 1970, I believe, the Rolling Stones had put out a greatest hits album, or a double album, which became the mainstay in many a person's car on an 8-track. An album by the claim of Hot Rocks. Hot Rocks was 4 sides of the best of the Stones. And if you never listened to the Stones before, you really were into their earlier stuff or doing their blues covers or some of that singles type of thing, this really compiled all the meat up through 1968 with Beggar's Banquet until they formed their own label and put out Sticky Fingers. But this is the cream of the crop. Well, the album sold so well that at that time, the label wanted to put down in London was saying, we want to put a second set out, which would comprise B-sides and other things like this. Stones were all for it, but the thing is they came into a big indifference. What are we going to call this album? Well, the Stones had an idea they wanted to call, there were two names that floated around. One was called Rape of the Vaults, which is very much along the lines of the Stones', the Stones' attitude about everything. You have to understand, this is a band that created an album called Schoolboy Blues, which in fact is an X-rated parody that was done to finish off a contractual arrangement with Andrew Lloyd Oldham. And it also did a parody about Andrew Lloyd Oldham as well, in which if you ever find these, you listen to them, okay, they are totally X-rated. Never been out legitimately, yeah, but you'll probably find them on YouTube or somewhere out there. But those were like gems. Well, getting back to the Rape of the Vaults with their idea, the second name they came up with was Necrophilia. Now, Necrophilia, they had already laid out a design for the cover. Tracks were chosen. It was ready to roll, and all of a sudden somebody in the head office said, oh, people are going to be offended by this. Necrophilia, that's the love of dead people. Well, ironically, Brian Jones was dead, and that was the whole thing about their idea of calling it this, because Brian Jones was dead, and they were going to put some music on that he was involved in. So they're raping his vault, whatever they could. But the record company just didn't see that. So the original cover was supposed to look similar to this, which was an outtake from the Between the Buttons session, which shows Brian Jones in the front, kind of bathed in a mist, with the rest of the band behind them. The back, of course, was your typical lineup of songs that appears on any of the Abco or, at that time, Wonder Abco records, and it was going to be a gatefold cover, which had all types of wild photographs and gizmos and gadgets. Well, the downside with this is that when they canceled out the cover, you'll probably notice this picture right here. This became, or one of these photographs, became the cover of the album. It was eventually named Big Hoods and Big Hits and Phased Cookies. Hot Rocks 2. Well, the album unfortunately did not do that well because when they were raping the vaults, they were bringing up the dirt too. It didn't do too well, and by this time, the Stones had put out Sticky Fingers, and guess what? A whole new chapter was written.
That's right. Probably their best chapter.
Yes. But this, I said, this is a bootleg. Illegal. Yes, the FBI can come take me away. But anyhow, I got this expressly because it had the original artwork on it. It was supposed to be proposed as. But you can find all these songs on Phased Hits and Big Cookies, or whatever it's called. That other.
That's a cool little slice of trivia. Yes, exactly.
Mindless trivia. God, I need shows like this so I can at least just all this useless knowledge I've acquired over the years. I can at least run my mouth about it.
All right, I'm going to fire off a couple quick ones here because I know we're running long on time. So I wanted to bring this one to mind, to the show. Steppenwolf for ladies only. I was one of those guys who, for decades, always thought, Steppenwolf. They did Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride. Yeah, whatever. I don't need to hear anything else by them because I've heard those songs a million times. Well, you know what? Recently, I decided to kind of dig a little deeper into their catalog, and you know something. There's a lot more to Steppenwolf than those two songs. I absolutely love this album. Just a great mix of hard rock and boogie and some psychedelic folk and God knows what else.
Yeah, they got pigeonholed with just a couple of hits.
Yeah, there's so much more to this band. So if you're like me and that's all you know by Steppenwolf and you figure, whatever, dive a little deeper because it's really, really good stuff.
They also put some albums out in the 70s also that kind of came and went. Because John Kay held the name Steppenwolf.
Yes. And
even as the albums progressed later on into the 70s, people don't realize they were recording in 1975, 1976. The thing is, it was still called John Kay and Steppenwolf, but he had different session musicians playing with him. And there's two rare albums, or actually three rare albums that you could find. They're probably on CD right now. One was called Slow Flux. The second one was called Hour of the Wolf. The last one was Skullduggery, was the first of the series. But those are also
strong too.
Yeah, they're strong. Out of every Steppenwolf album, there's always going to be one track or two tracks that might catch your ear. So they're always worth. You find them in the dollar bin somewhere or somebody's garage sale, grab them. It's worth it. It's worth the price. Bring them home, put them on. If not, you do what I do. Put them on the wall.
That's all. Another U.S. band, Highway Robbery for Love or Money. Another great heavy rock trio from the early 70s. This is their only album they ever did. It's fantastic. You love early Mountain, Black Sabbath, Grand Funk. Really, really good. It's really, really strong. Very, very hard to find on CD.
Sir Lord Baltimore.
Sir
yes.
Lord Baltimore. Again,
Classic.
we're going to go back to talking about those originators of the heavy metal sound. Another band that probably deserves to be mentioned. This compiles their first, their self-titled, as well as Kingdom Come, their second.
Kingdom Come.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
By that both.
Yeah, they're both on here. So again, heavy, heavy stuff for 1969, 1970.
Another album that fetches big money in vinyl. You can find
Absolutely.
pressing it. And the world of collecting vinyl, what I'm starting to realize and learn, and I'm like that myself. Even my covers I have on the wall. There's a lot of stuff being repressed. But a lot of people, even though they're repressing 180-gram vinyl, all this remastering, all this stuff like this, there's a lot of people that really want the original pressings.
Yeah.
Whether it be for the cracks and pops or just feeling it's the real deal. That happens. But Sir Lord Baltimore, very, very pricey record if you find
CD
an
too.
original.
Yeah, I spent a lot of money just for the CD alone, so but you can find it. So let's have you take us out with Coven.
Okay, let me just say one last thing about when you're showing all these CDs. One thing you have to realize out there, that a lot of these CDs that probably Peter is showing you right now, these CDs come in print. They make a small run, and when they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
So if you're going around there, anything picks up, catches your eye, your best bet is to check out for it. Because it could be gone tomorrow, and next thing you know, it's on eBay for a small mortgage and possibly 3 or 4 adopted children.
Absolutely.
So, so let's take it out with Coven. What is Coven? Well, this is like one of the gems in my collection, which proves, once again, when you're looking in a box one day, you look at something and go, ooh, that's interesting. And I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't. Well, a little bit of back history on Coven. Coven was founded in 1968 in California with a young lady by the name of Jinx Dawson. Now, the interesting thing about Coven, the band themselves were into the occult. And in one of the first albums that they were first band, should I say, that would go out there and make the sign of the devil when they were on stage. They were the first ones to also include a black mass on their album. Now, don't get me wrong, this album is not heavy like Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath has always been targeted as being satanic rock. It really wasn't. It was just heavy with a little bit of morbid photography, particularly on their first album. But Coven really was kind of like trying to live the dream, but they weren't that heavy. The interesting thing about Coven is it came out in 1969 on Mercury Records at the same time that the Lobianco murders happened in Los Angeles, which also was tied in with the Manson murders. Pentagram got cold, Mercury got cold feet and pulled all the copies of Pentagram. That was it. Pulled them. So that's why to find one of these in this shape out there from the original pressing is really difficult to find. The other thing that's I can show you. The other thing that's controversial about this album is it also had the lovely Miss Dawson, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, there she is, being sacrificed. Isn't that nice? Yep. Nothing like Mom would come home, you had this in your lap, and you're saying, "What are you doing?" "Nothing, Mom."
Just listen to Coven.
Just listening to Coven, and if Mom showed up really close, you just turn the page, I'm reading the lyrics. It would probably get a lot less punishment for reading like a satanic mass and looking at naked women. So it served two purposes. They pulled the album in 1969. It became very desirable. But an interesting twist of fate would come is that Jinx Dawson went off and recorded a song that became a semi-hit. But how did this song come about? A song by the name of One Tin Soldier was done by an obscure Canadian group. Tom Laughlin, who made fame as playing Billy Jack, was making the film Billy Jack. He wanted to have Jinx Dawson, as he knew her, sing the lyrics to the song One Tin Soldier. She went in, not with her band, but with a Warner Brothers studio orchestra.
Check it out on YouTube. It's on there.
Sang the song, came out. But one of her stipulations was that the song has to be attributed to Coven, or credited to Coven, which they did. In fact, a second Coven album came out, which I do not have with me today. I don't know if it was a contractual agreement or whatever. They put the sticker on there, featuring One Tin Soldier. But the cover had a picture of them all laying, facing you on camera. But they put little white dots over their faces so you couldn't see them. Don't know why that caused it, or whatever it was, they just used that, and that was their moment in the sun. After that, it was gone. They came back in 1974 and did somewhat of another satanic-looking cover, and don't mind the shape of this one because it's a bit old. It's called Coven, Blood on the Snow. The interesting thing about Blood on the Snow, a little bit of trivia about it, apparently, which is kind of really weird, 6 degrees of separation with Walt Disney, is apparently the song Blood on the Sun was written by Disney Music. Don't know about that, I haven't really confirmed it. But that'd be kind of creepy if you tell me. Coven still exists. Jinx Dawson is on Facebook. She's out there, and as a matter of fact, a few years ago, back in 2008, she compiled a bunch of tracks that were done probably in the early 70s, never released, coupled with some new stuff, and they released an album that was kind of like a career retrospective of things that were never released. They plan on getting back together and going on tour, but once again, they're a time capsule. You know, the infamy probably outweighs the quality of the music. If you want to listen to the Satanic Black Mass, knock yourself out. But the most valuable thing about this record, it is well produced, and Jinx Dawson has a great vocals, especially after you listen to One Tin Soldier. But the thing that's most interesting about this album, it's real hard to find. If it's been released on CD, I don't know. Finally, this record, if you find this record out there, this record is fetching between $175 to $300 because of the rarity of it, because of the amount that is still in existence, and especially in very good shape. But that's all I have for today.
I love that album cover. That wonderful little beastie on there with his violin.
Let's take him out of the plastic cover. There we go. She doesn't glare. There we go. He's playing his fiddle, and then there's a guy dreaming of the band in the back. Looks like a kid's book. What's in the inside? Oh, it's ripped. Okay. What's in the inside here? Oh, this has got like a gatefold. No, it's not. Oh, yeah. Kind of mundane.
Yeah.
You know, your typical, let's all lay with our heads in a circle around a manhole cover. Those photos and a couple of, like, filters, and guess what? This is so exciting.
Yeah.
That's it.
Good stuff.
You know?
Good stuff.
Well, this was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, hopefully everybody enjoyed this lengthy episode just talking about old stuff. I mean, old stuff is great.
If you'd like me back to hear some more of my useless knowledge, please, let Peter know. Because I really have no friends. I'm a lonely person.
Well, we'll definitely be back. We'll do another show with you sometime during the summer while you're having all the live music going on. And then for Psychedelic Zombie Barbecue, so that's coming up in September. So, meanwhile, once again, we come to a close of another What's Hot at Sea of Tranquility. I am your host, Pete Pardo, for Dan Brown. Have a good rest of the week. Catch us in 2 weeks. We're going to take 1 week off. Catch us in 2 weeks where we, once again, will be taking the show on location to Rock Fantasy in Middletown with owner Steve Keeler. So lots of fun stuff coming up then. So again, be safe. Make sure you check out lots of good new tunes and a lot of old stuff. And see you next time.
See you on the B-side.
Take care.